Hey everyone, welcome back. Polestar gets Nasdaq notice on potential delisting. This is remarkable. Not in a very good way. It's not positive for Polestar in the slightest way. But it's remarkable that this company, the stock price once stood above $10, $11, perhaps even higher. So in my opinion, if this company recovers, which I believe it will, I definitely believe Polestar has the potential to recover, but perhaps more than just potential to recover. They are on track to recover. Remember now, at the end of this year, they'll be delivering 3 different vehicles. At the end of this year, the Polestar stock price at $1.16 could be completely different. I still don't think this company will be delisted. I still think for this company to fall below $1, it's got to be reduced in stock price by another 10-15%. So I think there's a glimmer of hope in the sense that I think the company is as cheap as it's ever going to get right now. But damn, it is a great time to buy Polestar stock. This is not financial advice, it's just my opinion. Now it says here, Geely electric car manufacturer Polestar revealed on Friday that it's received a deficiency notice from Nasdaq for not filing its annual reports for the fiscal year of 2023. Polestar share closed on Friday 8 cents above its all-time low of $1.16. So essentially what it's saying here, the price has been cheaper and we haven't been delisted. So we can only hope that this is as cheap as the stock price will ever be, and it will never be anything cheaper than this. Polestar stated that it's not complied with Nasdaq listing rule 5250C1, which requires timely filing of all required periodic financial reports with the Security and Exchange Commission, SEC. In a recent SEC filing, the company said it is unable to file its 2023 annual reports, which was originally scheduled to be published on February the 29th before being delayed to the last day of April. Despite the notice, the company's securities will continue to list on Nasdaq as it has 60 days from the date of the notice to submit a plan of compliance to the Nasdaq. If accepted, the company may grant it an additional 180 calendar days from the due date of Form 20F or until November the 11th to regain compliance. The EV manufacturers obtain a waiver from its lenders under its US dollar 953-year loan facility for the late filing of the annual report on Form 20F. In a statement, the brand said it's working to file its annual reports of Form 20F as soon as practicable, and it reports its preliminary unaudited financial and operational results for the first quarter of 2024 soon thereafter. Now, Polestar claimed in its SEC filing that the existence of certain errors in the 2021 and 2022 annual and internal financial statements added that it will file the Form 20F as soon as practicable. Following the adjustment needed to correct both 2021 and 2022 statements, the company anticipated a decrease of less than 5% in its net loss for 2021 and an increase of less than 5% for 2022. Polestar launched last month the arrival of the Polestar 4 SUV to the US market. The first deliveries are planned for the last quarter of 2024 this year, with the model starting at $55,000 as the company faces extreme pressures from shareholders. As the online sales commence today in the US, production is scheduled to begin in the US during the third quarter. The brand delivers approximately 7.2 thousand cars globally in the first quarter. CEO Thomas Inglis had recently addressed shareholders, emphasizing the company's commitment to succeed with the latest Model 3 and Model 4. These are the 2 new models that are being added to the brand. Inglis added also that the final prototype of the Polestar 5 will be completed this year. As we well know, I've reported on that before, so this is certainly a very interesting time for the Polestar company. Like I said, I've actually made updates on other Polestar vehicles like the Polestar 5. It was recently unveiled that they had a world first 10-minute charge of the EV prototype. So the last prototype being created this year, they charge this vehicle from 10% to 80% in 10 minutes. That's quite incredible because they're using a technology that the company is known as StoreDot. And I've actually spoken about StoreDot before, but to give you some additional information, Polestar achieved this feat using a silicon-dominant battery built by Israel startup StoreDot. Polestar installed a battery in a fully drivable prototype of the Polestar 5 model, set to go on sale next year. It managed to charge the EV from 10 to 80% in under 10 minutes. Now, it says here that the Polestar 5 intends to go on sale next year. Now, personally, I've seen conflicting data. I've seen data suggesting that it might be going on sale at a delayed time, perhaps 2026. But if the final prototype is being created this year, then it would obviously stand to believe that it makes sense if the model would go on sale approximately a year later, perhaps late 2025, which would be Q4, Q3 2025 next year. This vehicle will not be the most popular selling vehicle. It is mostly there for Polestar to make greater returns in terms of margins. Now, speaking of margins, profit margins, if we're looking across the board, electric vehicles are not the best in terms of making profit because of the incredibly expensive lithium battery. Polestar is well known for being perhaps the most profitable company in this space in making electric vehicles, because if we look at data from Visual Capitalists, it suggests that Q3 2022, this is a while now, Tesla on average was generating 9,574,000 per Tesla model that was sold. But that's Tesla. Tesla has a very different architecture in terms of business strategy, business size, and business demand. Tesla spent years to perfect and to accomplish this number. Polestar is a very new beginner. You look at brands like NIO, a brand that is, I would say, a bit more similarly competitive with Polestar because they're both still in the startup stage. It was said that NIO was losing approximately 19,000 per model that was sold. Chinese EV startup has suffered heavily lost in recent quarter. Both XPeng and NIO have pointed to ongoing supply chain issues and strict COVID-19 lockdown. This was when COVID was still quite prominent. So this is a different time. It's not the best data to look at, but you can see even Ford was struggling to a certain extent. But Ford has managed to still sell petrol vehicles while also producing electric vehicles. They can balance this very well. And you know who can do this very well? That is very closely familiar with Polestar. It's Volvo. Volvo is selling electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, and petrol vehicles. I believe the last diesel Volvo vehicle has stopped being produced. And I made a report on that as well. That was a great moment for Volvo to move away from diesel, now focusing more on electric vehicles, because that full transition is on its way. It's not completely there yet, but it's on its way. We can see for even brands like Hyundai, Volkswagen, BYD, Toyota, GM, even their margins were incredibly low compared to Tesla. So what would this data suggest to us now in 2024? Again, this was some data from 2022 March. And I think the company that was somewhat in the positive, and this is an EV company aside from Tesla, a full electric vehicle company, that was BYD. I expect BYD to continue doing well in this area. I'm not expecting BYD to be negative in the margins per unit sold, but you can see it's a very difficult thing to accomplish. So brands like Li Auto, XPeng, NIO, they're also struggling, but they're trying to improve those margins as we speak. Now, while Polestar, on the other hand, this is their plethora of vehicles. Minus the Polestar 1, this was a limited edition vehicle, 1,500, I believe, only in the world. Those are incredibly rare, incredibly expensive. Now, if you look at the Polestar 2, Polestar 3, Polestar 4, those are the vehicles that'll be very popular this year, next year. The Polestar 5, Polestar 6, those will come later, I'm guessing in 2026, if I'm being completely honest. Polestar 6 actually could come in 2027 if I'm being completely honest, because they want to get these vehicles right. They want to make sure that they can optimize these vehicles for efficiency, but also for profit, just as they're attempting to accomplish with the Polestar 4 and Polestar 3. Those vehicles, the Polestar 3 and Polestar 4, are optimized for efficiency, but also for profit. While the Polestar 2, they've done the best that they can do to optimize this vehicle for profit, but I must be completely honest. It is not the kind of vehicle that was designed with profit in mind. It was the kind of vehicle that was adapted for Polestar. and in order to give the Polestar brand a start. And it's the perfect start, if I'm being completely honest. Which is why we've perhaps heard news lately that Polestar is planning to develop a new Polestar 2 replacement, which could be the Polestar 7. That could ultimately be a Polestar 2 replacement. If I'm being completely honest, I don't think they should get rid of the Polestar 2. I think the shape is iconic. I think that's what a Polestar vehicle is. I can spot it from miles away. I don't want to see them get rid of that shape. I think people actually really like that car and really like the shape. But is it doing justice for the company? Will the company have to do a complete new redesign of the Polestar 2 to make it what it really needs to be? Or will the Polestar 7 take on a very similar identity, but just improvements in every way? Remember, the Polestar 2 was never designed to be an electric vehicle originally. It was transitioned into an electric vehicle. But what I have liked is that Polestar stuck with this idea of transitioning into an electric vehicle because they raised the platform. And that's why the Polestar 2 often looks higher off the ground, because they raised the platform to add that battery pack. What I tend to find with the Polestar 3 and Polestar 4, I've seen them in person, they also have this look as if they've also been raised off the ground, which is ironic because you wouldn't think they would go for that, but they did. And you know what? It works. The Polestar 4 in terms of design and size and space is perhaps the best replacement for the Polestar 2, but it wasn't designed for that in mind. The Polestar 4 was designed to be a more premium vehicle, not quite as expensive as the Polestar 3, but somewhere between the 2 and the 3, which is bafflingly confused because they should just change the names. The Polestar 3 should be the Polestar 4, and the Polestar 4 should be the Polestar 3. That would make a lot more sense, and I think we would all agree on that. Don't get me wrong, I love the name of the Polestar 4. It suits the car. The name of the 3 suits the 3. They don't look orderly. They look unorganized, if I'm being completely honest, and it's not just me. And I think that might create some confusions amongst, people who are interested in buying these vehicles. It's not just me. I think this could genuinely create some confusion. Recently, I was in a Polestar store, and a customer actually asked a question to the sales assistant. The Polestar customer said, "Why is the 4 less expensive than the 3?" Because in their mind, they're thinking 4 is the higher number. Shouldn't the 4 be the bigger and better and more expensive vehicles? Sales assistant had to explain it to them in the best way possible. And I think, yeah, common sense, people are going to think, wait, isn't the 4 supposed to be better than the 3? Isn't it supposed to be bigger in every way? No. The 4 is actually more like a sport, premium, coupe, hatchback SUV. It's not very high off the ground though, and it might not have that idea when it comes to the design language. But I've been in this vehicle. It definitely has the interior of a small SUV. It definitely does. It's a small SUV from the interior, but from the exterior, it doesn't give you that impression. So I get that. But all of these vehicles, from the Polestar 3 to the Polestar 6, they're all optimized for profitability and for margins improvements. So expect to see the Polestar 3 and the Polestar 4 continue to improve the margins, profit margins, for the Polestar company, especially with the more of these vehicles they build and sell, which is why I'm estimating that Polestar will do very well in 2025 and 2026 with these vehicles. With all 3 of these vehicles, they will do particularly well. And when the Polestar 5 comes to the market, it's like adding an e-tron or a Taycan. It will also do extremely well for the Polestar brand because it's the type of vehicle that you just like, what the heck is that? It's just beautiful. It's just bizarre. It's like an alien spaceship on wheels, and it's really gorgeous. So that is it for today's video, but I do appreciate you watching. Something that I do also want to add, you can clearly see that the Polestar 3 is scheduled to be built in Chengdu, China, but also Charleston, USA, while the Polestar 4 is scheduled to be built in Hongzhou Bay, China, while the second factory that this vehicle could potentially be built in is TBC. So we don't know yet. They could build this vehicle in another factory also. Polestar 5 and Polestar 6, they will be built in the same factory because virtually they're kind of like the same vehicle, virtually, but one is a sport car and the other one is a sports sedan, GT. The excitement is real. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to see more. Leave a like, leave a comment, and I will see you in our next video. Peace.